Cue the music.
I do love that music. I
Do
think
you
that
really?
music is just great. I don't
I
know who stole
agree.
it from, that you also resonated with it. Maybe just because we're old and gray, and so
That's it.
that's all that really
Yeah.
matters. When all the pistons are firing, it's magical.
Oh
And
man,
it happens so rare.
you're a poet. That is so poetic.
Oh
Although
shoot.
I'm a few pistons short of
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 a
an
of a,
of a
a
four
V8.
cylinder of a
Yeah, of a
four
four
cylinder.
cylinder. That's right. All right. Well, welcome to Pondering Psalms. We're talking about Psalm 71, and I'm Curt Austin, and that's my good friend there,
David Mullins, yeah.
David Mullins. Yeah,
Hey,
we still have
Kurt,
yet to work that out.
I know. Hey, how long have we been friends?
We met in seminary. Well, no, according to you, we met long before that. But we got to know each other in seminary,
I love
and
that.
that was in 1988, right? Is that when we first met each other? 1988.
I think so. I think so.
32 years.
And I love the fact that you said, I think we met before that because I am so forgettable
No, I just
that
don't
the
remember.
first interaction with Kurt Austin, he does not remember
No,
me.
at that point in my life, I really only cared about myself. So you didn't hit my radar, not because of you, but because of me.
Okay.
But I do remember when we did meet. It was in the gym at the seminary. You were playing basketball.
Really? I thought we met
I
at
was
the
not
at
playing.
the at the mail thing, and I thought you were your brother.
Oh, that could be too. I just remember talking to you in the gym.
Yeah,
But we have been living life together, literally living life together, not in the same house because that'd just be weird since we both
that
have
would be
families.
weird. Yeah.
But we've been living life together now for these 32 years, 38 years. No,
No, no.
my
You,
math is
you,
terrible.
yeah,
32 years, 32
yeah,
years because it was 88. 32
yeah.
years where we have known each other. We have celebrated life together. We've prayed together. We've cried together. We've worshiped together. And God has given us a great opportunity then to ponder the Psalms together. And so that's what we do. We read one psalm every day of the week. So we're reading Psalm 71 this past week, and we're coming together today just to talk about it.
Yes.
Maybe what stood out to us, what was it about the passage that really did something in our own lives, or maybe in the context of where we are. I think it's probably important for us to also mention that this recording, as well as some others, are it's after a week of review, but because we're kind of behind a little bit, and stuff happens in the world. A lot of stuff is happening right now. So we may mention something that's contextual to history, that when you're watching this a week from now, a lot of things might have changed. A lot of things might have happened. That seems to be what's going on in our world right now. But if you're watching this 2 or 3 years from now, um, you'll definitely things will have changed. And so I think the thing that, as Dave and I have thought about the Psalms, given that they're thousands of years old
Yeah.
and they're still current.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter what happened this week or what happened last week. The words of the psalmists are still current to who we are today, our life's condition, and God's love for us. And I think
Amen.
that's why we've really enjoyed studying this together. So the other thing we want to do is we want to make a commitment to you. Our first one was just a practice run, to be honest, and we were really enjoying talking to each other. So we're going to try and keep it to a little bit more succinct because we want to honor your time, as well as then maybe give you um, some valuable insights from what we see, as well as then hear from you at the end of this. If you want to post some comments, this one stood out to me. I loved it. This passage, I hadn't thought about this way before. Thank you. Whatever you want to say, we'd love to hear back from you. So,
Yeah, that'd be great.
so,
That'd be great.
so
So,
Dave, tell me what stood out to you this week in this passage.
well, I was going to ask you that, but I can.
No, you do every week. It's my turn to ask you.
Okay. Okay. Well, what stood out to me, one is, Psalm 70 and 71 really go together. Last week we looked at Psalm 70. the psalmist was praying that God would come and help him quickly. And
Hmm.
here he is continuing that, or that thought is being continued. It's probably a different psalmist, but saying, "Oh Lord, I have come to you for protection." Something's going on. He's got some enemies. But the thing that really jumped out at me was down here, and we'll have to go through quite a bit, but in verse 17. Because I really think this summarizes, at least for me, what the psalmist is getting at. And there's a couple of things. One is that he has been experiencing God's protection and God's love and God's presence since childhood, since
Hmm.
earliest childhood. But now, do you see what it says there in verse 18, Curt?
Yeah.
Now I'm
Yeah.
what?
Stop it. Old and gray. Old and
Yeah,
gray.
yeah, I got it
All
here.
right.
I don't
So
have any gray
here's
up here.
this is what derails us. But this last week I was on a call with my mom, and I turned it on video so we could talk. So we just see each other. And she went, "Oh my!" I said, "What?" She went, "I didn't realize you had so much gray on top like that. You're almost silver." I went, "Thanks, Mom. I really appreciate that."
Silver fox.
Yeah. Right.
Got some snow on those mountain caps.
Oh shoot! Now that I'm old and gray.
Yeah, yeah, and this is something that stood out to me, and I'll admit
Hmm.
this. I'll admit this here that I never wanted to grow old.
Hmm.
That is knowing the consequence of that desire,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of downsides to getting old.
Yeah.
And I'm experiencing those, and the psalmist talks about earlier that he is losing his strength.
Right.
And
Exactly.
because of that, his enemies are thinking it's a good time to come against him,
Hmm.
actually alluding to the fact that God has abandoned him. Uh, verse 9. Don't abandon me when my strength is failing, for my enemies are whispering against me. They're plotting to kill me. They say, God
Yeah.
has abandoned him. Let's go and get him. For now, no one will help him. So,
And I think Dave, when you're talking about old and gray, you're dealing with the physical infirmities,
yes.
at a point maybe even mental infirmities. But I think it doesn't necessarily have to be old and gray for this psalmist. In this, it is, but it represents weakness. It
Yeah.
represents, and we saw it in Psalm 69, we saw it in Psalm 70, and now here again, need. There's need. Um, I'm just not able to do this on my own anymore.
Mm.
You know, whatever confidence I had, we had a friend this last week we were meeting when they were saying, now that I've turned whatever age it was, I really notice my body's changing. I have a lot of need. Physically, I'm not the same person I
Yeah.
was when I was 40. My brother-in-law told me when I turned 40, get ready, your body parts are going to start to hurt a lot. And when you're 8, you lose teeth, and so there's all kinds of changes that are constantly happening, and we're in need. And the psalmist in 18 let in the midst of that, what's the psalmist in 18 say? Even in the midst of my need, let me praise,
Yeah.
let
Yeah.
me proclaim.
Yeah. And and it what's and and here's the thing I've noticed about myself. I can have two opposite desires at the same time.
Oh, absolutely.
So I had this desire not to get old, but I also had this desire to be the old wise man. You know, the
Without
the
having to go through any of the aging process.
That's it. You get me.
Yeah,
You get me.
yeah, yeah.
Someone that because of time has been able to learn and has been able
Hmm.
to observe and reflect, and now they have this wisdom that
Yeah,
that only comes from experience, which
yeah.
only comes from longevity. And what I love, what really jumped out at me is he says, "Now that I'm old and gray, do not abandon me, O God. Let me proclaim your power to this new
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm losing strength, but my desire is that even in this loss of strength, let me to have the strength to proclaim you, because I've been following you since earliest childhood, from the womb, he says. Now's my time to proclaim you to a new generation that doesn't have that advantage of
Yeah.
longevity.
Yeah, and um, I've had a lot of opportunity this last, and again for context, pandemic, racial injustice, rioting, leadership is still trying to figure out what in the world we're doing. It seems to me that the U.S. has lost some of its global authority. Maybe that's not everybody's take, but at least for the folks that I work with, that's a conversation that seems to be happening a lot. And I work because I'm old and gray. I work with a lot of young people in our business, and have had a great opportunity to talk to several of them this last week. How are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling? What does this feel like to you? And being able then to share with them my experience, my view, but not in a this is the way you ought to believe, but in fact getting to share with them some wisdom of longevity, getting to share with them um, an opportunity to share with them that God is bigger than these things.
Yeah.
Um,
One thing that we can say to the new generation that they probably might not know in their own experience,
no,
this too shall pass.
yeah,
Because we've seen a lot of things that have passed.
yeah,
And, and yeah, you can look at history and the history books and stuff, but it isn't the same as when you experience it. Uh,
yeah.
so,
I think I worked with a gentleman who, when he was a young man, elementary, junior high, his greatest fear was being bombed by the Russians, and
okay.
they were
Yeah.
doing nuclear bombing drills.
Yeah.
Where he said, they would sound the siren and you would crawl under your desk,
Yeah.
and that passed. Now, we still have a threat of that. I mean, anybody could do something stupid, but that fear in that passed. Now, I will say, and this is my own take. I hope part of this never passes. I hope part of this
Mm,
is fixed. I hope part of this is addressed. I hope that somehow God can use me for an agent of change, maybe by talking about the miracles that God can do
yeah.
and how we can be a part of that, and to constantly tell others about, in verse 17, others about the wonderful things that God can do.
Yeah.
Um,
And here's the thing. I don't know where we're on time, but I wanted to make sure to get this in. You know, I, I'm the pastor of a church, and I think for a lot of folks, and I know that's a very big generalization.
yeah,
We don't realize this
yeah,
calling on our lives.
yeah,
That I talk to so many folks that will say, well, I'm older now and I can't do this and I can't do that and I can't do the other thing. I would like to help with this. I would like to get up on the roof and help change the roof of the church. But I'm 83, and it's
yeah,
like, no, you shouldn't be. But you know what?
yeah,
There, you've got 30 years on
hmm
me.
yeah,
Proclaim to me the power that you have seen in your lifetime. There is something that only comes with this old and gray, and I just can't get that they can proclaim it, and I can proclaim it to the generations before me. And so I really appreciate the psalmist here recognizing that even though he's got these folks breathing down his neck, even though he feels weakened and like he's losing his strength, yet he still worships, praises God, and he continues because he wants to proclaim everything that God has done and is doing to those who are following behind.
well, and wouldn't it be cool someday when this next generation is reading this, that they say, and now that I'm old and gray,
Yeah.
because someone taught me from an early childhood. I understood God's goodness from an early childhood. That's how they hear about God. That's how they experience God. That's how things change in their life, because we have been faithful to tell the next generation, just as someone was faithful to tell us. What was your elementary Sunday school teacher's name? What was the woman who you've talked about her before? I've heard her.
I would say you're probably talking about my high school. I don't remember much from elementary, but
Okay.
probably
Your high
Rhonda. Yeah,
Yeah.
Rhonda. Yeah,
Mine
yeah.
mine was Mrs. Green in second grade.
Okay.
Lily Green.
It's up to us. If we keep quiet, what hope does the new generation have?
Yeah.
Because maybe they haven't experienced it, and we assume, oh, everyone will experience this. Well, we're the ones that help lead them into these experiences.
Right. Yep. The wisdom that comes with time also comes with a heavy burden.
Yes. Yeah.
And there have been people in my life who have freely shared and have been faithful to what God has put into their lives, the calling that you just talked about, whether you're 56 or 83 or whatever your age. And there have also been people in my life who have not freely shared, who have withheld what it was that God had given to them. And we're all the weaker because of that. We all suffer because of that. God has given us this gift, and it's up to us to share it.
Yeah.
And when we choose not to, we aren't honoring all that God has given to us, and we are not honoring God, and we're not honoring the people in our lives.
Yeah, they're poor. They're poorer because of it.
Yeah.
And verse 7 really speaks to this. I mean, this is before the verses 17 that we've been looking at. He says, "My life is an example to many."
Yeah.
And the word that I think some of the translations use is portent. And it's like, okay, that's a word I never use.
Yeah. Never. I'm going to now.
Yeah.
Because it's,
Oh, that's a good portent. But it's a symbol, it's a sign. The NLT, New Living Translations, translates it as an example. And one of the commentators pointed out that there's two sides of God's.
Absolutely.
There's condemnation and there's salvation. There's two sides to God's justice or righteousness. And they pointed out that apparently in Hebrew this is ambiguous, so they're not sure whether that example or that portent is part of the condemnation or part of the salvation. So there's a negative and positive. And it's like, yeah, if you can't be a good example, at least willing to be a cautionary tale. That's what I tell people. Don't do what I did. I worried and I fretted and I was worried about everything, but yet, God still came through.
And still does,
Still does.
Here's the psalmist still giving us, kind of a, oh, woe is me, I'm in need. I've got all these problems, but God is greater, so it's kind of both ends. Yeah. Well, we really are at our time, and we want to wrap this up. Is there anything else that you want to share, Dave? Anything else that really pops out to you?
I would say verse 21. This confidence, you will restore me to even, look at this, not just the honor I had, because I would think that would be good enough. No.
Yeah.
Greater honor, and comfort me once again. Then I will praise you with music on the harp because of your faith. Then I can enter in this cycle all over again. I will have new stories to tell. Yeah. What about you, Curt?
Yeah. You know what? I highlighted two things on day one when I read this the first time. One was 17, 18, and one was 21. Those were the two things in this entire psalm that jumped out to me. I think it's great that you also resonated with it. Maybe just because we're old and gray, and so that's all that really mattered. But that restoring to higher, lifting me up, and there's the then again. When that happens, I will praise you.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation. We really appreciate the time. And we'll keep doing it.
Yeah. What's going to be our next psalm that we're going to be working on?
Well, why don't we do Psalm 72?
Okay.
I saw it when I was reading Psalm 71. When I came to the end, it was right there. I figured, why not? Let's just pick up where we are.
I'm down with that.
All right. So we're gonna post this on YouTube. We're gonna post this on Facebook, and if you want to follow us on Facebook, if somebody sent this to you, because I'm sure people are going to be so passionate about this, they're going to be sharing it left and right.
Oh yeah.
And feel free to follow us there, and join us. Every day we're going to be moving on to Psalm 72, and so read along with us.
And just one last thing. Allow the Psalms to speak into your life, like this one. I mean, we're going through a pandemic, like Curt said, riots and everything right now. I think this Psalm speaks to our current situation and continuing to hope and praise God, even though these enemies of pandemic, rioting, and just divisiveness breathing down our necks, saying, "Hey, now's the time." God, they're weak. No, we're not. No, we're not, because He will come. Excellent. And He will be faithful in all things.
You're just a pastor. You can't help yourself, can you?
I cannot. You got it. But, it's not the pastor part. It's here's the thing. I don't feel like a pastor. It's not the pastor part. It's just allowing His Word to be the source of your life. And so,
which is why we've been friends for 32 years, because I love that about you.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to call it a day. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you back here next week.
All right. Thanks, everyone.